It's a feeling we all know too well, the sudden rush of pressure that builds up when everything seems to go wrong at once. Imagine being stuck on an alien world, surrounded by species that are vastly different from you, with technology that feels both strange and familiar at the same time. And just when you think you've got it under control, the unexpected happens, and the weight of it all comes crashing down. This is the story of how humans, us, manage to not only survive in the most extreme situations, but also thrive in ways that no one, especially the alien species we share the universe with, could ever understand. The story takes place in a distant future, where humanity has become an active player on the galactic stage. We've established colonies, formed alliances, and learned to coexist with species from all corners of the universe. However, the more we adapt to the stars, the more our eccentricities become evident to others. While many species in the galaxy have their own incredible strengths, none can match the unique, unyielding nature of humans. We don't just endure, we push through, adapt, and come out on top, often in ways that seem downright weird to others. In this particular tale, we follow a team of human explorers who have landed on a mysterious planet. The planet itself is like no other they've encountered before. Its environment is volatile, its atmosphere dense, and its gravity a constant source of strain. But that's not what's bothering the crew. No, what's really got them on edge is the strange alien species they've come to meet, one that prides itself on being in complete control at all times. For the alien species, the idea of pressure, both physical and mental, can lead to serious consequences. But the humans, we thrive under pressure. It's part of our nature, even when the stakes are high. The primary character we follow is Captain Lila Winters, a seasoned astronaut with a reputation for keeping her cool, no matter what the universe throws her way. Lila's leadership and a sharp mind have gotten her through countless close calls. But this mission is different. This planet is a pressure cooker, both literally and figuratively, and the crew isn't sure whether it will break them or make them stronger. The tension builds as Lila and her team begin their mission, but it's clear that something is off. The planet's atmosphere is messing with the crew's equipment, and every action they take seems to make the pressure even worse. Then, there's the alien species they've come to negotiate with, the Zorath. A proud, technologically advanced race, the Zorath have no tolerance for mistakes, failures, or any form of weakness. Their entire society is built on a delicate balance of control and order. And humans? Well, we're known for being anything but orderly. We're unpredictable, we're chaotic, and we're relentless. But we're also incredibly resourceful. This makes the Zorath uneasy. They don't understand how humans can perform under pressure, without crumbling, without breaking down mentally or physically. To them, it's a fundamental flaw. But to humans, it's simply who we are. As Lila and her crew dive deeper into their mission, they quickly realize that they're not just dealing with environmental pressure. They're up against an entire culture that's built on the idea of absolute control. And as the Zorath watch them with calculating eyes, the crew begins to question whether they can maintain their humanity in such a high-stakes environment. What's worse, the Zorath have their own secrets. Secrets that could change everything for humanity if they're revealed. Pressure, however, isn't just an external force. It's internal too. The longer the humans spend on the planet, the more they begin to feel the strain. Their bodies start to weaken under the weight of the atmosphere. Their minds fray from the constant stress, and their resolve is tested by the harsh environment. But there's one thing they don't realize. What they consider to be their weakness might actually be their greatest strength. The more pressure they're under, the more they start to adapt and grow. The Zorath can't understand this. They see humans as fragile, as a species that will eventually crumble under the pressure. But what the Zorath don't understand is that we've been thriving under pressure for centuries, even millennia. We've faced wars, famine, and the very nature of survival itself. And every time, we've come out the other side stronger. The moment that changes everything comes when the crew stumbles upon a hidden facility deep beneath the planet's surface. There, they discover something that's been buried for centuries. An ancient artifact, a relic that could hold the key to understanding the true nature of the Zorath. But as they uncover its secrets, something goes terribly wrong. The pressure of the planet's atmosphere increases to a dangerous level, and suddenly, the team is forced into a race against time. Will they escape the planet's deadly grasp before it's too late? And what will they do with the knowledge they've uncovered? But there's an even darker force at play. The Zorath, realizing what the humans have discovered, move swiftly to protect their secrets. As Lila and her crew try to navigate their way out of the planet's harsh grip, they realize that the Zorath will stop at nothing to prevent their truth from being exposed. The pressure isn't just physical, it's psychological, emotional, and even political. The humans are caught in the middle of a game they didn't know they were playing. As the crew scrambles to find a way off the planet, tensions rise, and they must rely on their most human trait, the ability to adapt under pressure. In a desperate move, Captain Lila Winters makes a decision that could either save them all or cost them everything. As they race against the clock, Lila looks out at the storm, raging on the surface. The Zorath are closing in, and the truth they've uncovered is more dangerous than anything they could have imagined. But one thing is certain. The pressure is building, and no matter how hard they try, there's no escaping it now. What happens next? How far will humanity go to expose the truth? And can they survive the ultimate test of pressure? Stay tuned for the next part of this story, because the pressure drop is just beginning. As the hours ticked by, the pressure on Captain Lila Winters and her crew only grew heavier. They had barely made it to the facility beneath the planet's surface when the storm on the surface began to pick up speed. And now it wasn't just the environment they were battling. There was something else lurking beneath the surface. Something far darker and more dangerous than they had first anticipated. The Zorath knew they were there, and they were closing in fast. Lila paced back and forth in the dimly lit room of their makeshift command center. The small, cramped space felt like a prison as the walls seemed to close in around her. Outside, the storm raged, but the bigger threat was the Zorath, who had always prided themselves on their perfect control, their perfect, emotionless order. They could be deadly in a way that the crew had underestimated. They weren't just a species of advanced technology. They were masters of manipulation, holding everything in their grasp with the icy certainty that only millennia of dominance could foster. Lila's mind raced. They hadn't just uncovered the artifact. They had unwittingly stumbled upon something that could change everything for both their species and the Zorath. The ancient relic, a metallic cube adorned with intricate carvings, pulsed with an energy that they couldn't quite understand. When they first found it, they thought it was just another piece of alien tech, but it was clear now that it was something much bigger, something powerful, something tied directly to the heart of the Zorath civilization, and that was why the Zorath were so determined to keep it hidden. She glanced at the holographic map of the underground facility, which was riddled with narrow corridors and locked doors, all of them seemingly designed to keep people out. They had only accessed a small fraction of the complex before the alarms went off, signaling that they were detected. But they had learned enough. The artifact was a key to something larger, something that the Zorath had kept hidden from the rest of the universe for centuries. Lila, we need to make a decision. Lieutenant Jonah Miller's voice crackled over the comms, snapping her out of her thoughts. His tone was tense, laced with anxiety. The Zorath are closing in on our position. We can't just sit here and wait for them to find us. Lila felt the weight of the situation press down on her, like the crushing gravity outside. She could hear the urgency in Jonah's voice, but the more she thought about it, the more the plan seemed impossible. Every move they made only seemed to make the pressure more unbearable. They had come to the planet expecting a simple mission, a diplomatic exchange with the Zorath, maybe some trade negotiations, and a return to their station. But now they were caught in a deadly game with no way out. They had no idea what the Zorath were capable of. They were ruthless when it came to protecting their secrets. They had no hesitation when it came to using force to keep their way of life intact. If the crew was to make it out alive, they would have to act fast. And they would have to trust in the one thing that had always been their strength: each other. I know, Lila replied, her voice steady despite the tension rising in her chest. But we need more time. We need to figure out what the artifact really does before we make a move. We can't risk making a wrong move now. This could be bigger than we thought. The rest of the crew was scattered throughout the facility, working quickly to uncover more secrets. Engineering Chief Mia Liu was busy rerouting power to keep their position concealed. Medical Officer Dr. Avery Johnson was monitoring their vitals, making sure everyone was holding up under the physical strain of the atmosphere. The rest of the team was on edge, barely able to keep their focus, as the constant threat of Zorath patrols hung over them like a dark cloud. Every sound in the facility felt amplified, every shadow a potential danger. Meanwhile, the alien artifact remained in the center of the room, its pulsing energy the only source of light in the otherwise dark space. It seemed to call to them, but Lila could never shake the feeling that it was dangerous, too dangerous. What if this wasn't just an ancient artifact? What if it was a weapon of unimaginable power, capable of turning the tide of war? If the Zorath had hidden it for so long, it was clear that they didn't want anyone to know its true potential. Lila took a deep breath, pushing the mounting pressure to the back of her mind. She couldn't afford to let fear take control. Not now. There was too much at stake. Jonah, Mia, she called over the comms. We need to get that artifact back to the ship. It's the only leverage we have. If we can make it back to the ship, we can... A sudden, violent tremor interrupted her transmission, followed by the blaring sound of alarms throughout the facility. The lights flickered, then went out entirely, leaving the crew in complete darkness. Lila's heart skipped a beat. It was the Zorath. They had found them. Everyone fall back to the rendezvous point, Lila ordered, her voice tight. Move now. She didn't wait for a response. They didn't have time. The pressure had reached its peak, and the crew's survival instincts kicked in. They scattered in different directions, each one knowing their path to escape. Lila grabbed the artifact and sprinted toward the rendezvous point, her mind racing. But as she ran through the labyrinthine hallways, her thoughts kept returning to the Zorath. What were they really hiding? Why were they so determined to keep the artifact from falling into human hands? And what would happen if they succeeded in taking it back to their ship? The thought of what the Zorath might do next sent a chill down her spine. They were relentless. If they were willing to go this far to protect the relic, it meant there was something far more dangerous at play. But the crew had no choice now. They had to get out, and they had to take the artifact with them. The walls. of the facility seemed to close in on Lila as she navigated the dark, narrow corridors. She could hear footsteps echoing behind her, the unmistakable sound of the Zorath closing in. Sweat dripped down her face, her breathing heavy as she pushed herself harder. The pressure was suffocating, and it felt like the walls were collapsing in around her. She had no idea how much time they had left. The storm outside was growing stronger, and with it, the pressure inside the facility. They needed to make it out before everything fell apart. But no matter how fast she ran, it never felt fast enough. Suddenly she heard a voice, low and cold, coming from the shadows. "Stop right there, Captain Winters." The voice, cold and sharp, cut through the air like a knife. Lila froze, her heart pounding in her chest as she quickly assessed her surroundings. The voice came from the shadows ahead, but there was no time to turn around or try to hide. The Zorath had found her. There was no mistaking the tone. It was the voice of someone in control, someone who knew exactly what was going to happen next. "Captain Winters," the voice repeated, this time closer, its chilling calmness making her skin crawl. "You've made a grave mistake." Lila's mind raced, but her body acted on instinct. She spun around, gripping the artifact tightly in her hands, ready to make her final stand. But there, stepping out from the darkness, was not one of the usual Zorath soldiers. It was an individual, tall and imposing, with the same unsettling calmness in their expression. They wore the insignia of the highest rank among the Zorath, an elder, one of their most powerful leaders. "You," Lila started, her voice catching in her throat. "You're the one behind this. You've been hiding this all along." The Zorath elder's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "We didn't hide it. We protected it. From your kind and from anyone else who might use it recklessly." Lila's grip on the artifact tightened, but she didn't back down. "We are not reckless. We need to know the truth, and we will take it with us if necessary." The elder took a step forward, his eyes cold and calculating. "You have no idea what you're holding, Captain. That artifact is not just a relic. It is a piece of our history. It is the key to a power that could tear apart the very fabric of the galaxy. If you think your species can control it, you're gravely mistaken." Lila's breath quickened, her mind trying to process what he was saying. A power that could tear apart the galaxy. She couldn't let it fall into the wrong hands, no matter whose hands those were. She glanced over her shoulder. Her team should be close, but they were likely already in danger. There was no time for hesitation. The stakes had just been raised far higher than she could have imagined. "I don't know what you've been hiding from us," Lila said, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. "But we're not leaving without answers." The elder let out a soft chuckle. "You still don't understand. It's not about answers. It's about survival. The truth is, the power you're so eager to take is what has kept this galaxy in balance for millennia. Remove it, and the forces you cannot even comprehend will be unleashed. You may think you're prepared, but you are not." Lila's pulse raced. There was no way she was walking away from this. Her team needed her. They were counting on her, and humanity wasn't going to back down from this kind of challenge. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps behind her reached her ears. She didn't need to look to know it was Jonah and Mia. The crew had found her, but with them, the Zorath were sure to be right on their heels. This was it. She had no choice but to make her stand here. The elder's expression shifted, his eyes narrowing. "I warned you, Captain. This is your final chance. Hand it over." Lila's grip on the artifact never wavered. She could feel its energy coursing through her. Something foreign, but undeniably powerful. She could almost feel the weight of the decision pressing on her. What if the elder was right? What if using the artifact would destroy everything they'd worked for. But then she thought of her crew, of humanity, and of what they represented. The ability to push through when everything seemed impossible. No matter the odds, humans had always found a way. "This isn't your choice to make," Lila said, her voice steady now, the tension breaking into resolve. "We will make our own fate." With that, she turned and sprinted forward, the elders' voice fading behind her as she made her way back toward the rendezvous point. Jonah and Mia flanked her, and the three of them moved as one, determined and focused, knowing that their survival depended on a single thing now: escape. The sound of pursuit grew louder, but Lila could sense something else as they raced through the hallways, the ground beneath their feet shaking with the power of the storm. They were close. The pressure, both physical and mental, had reached its boiling point, but Lila pushed it all aside. They could deal with the consequences later. Right now, all that mattered was getting the artifact to safety. They reached the rendezvous point just as the first Zorath soldiers rounded the corner. Lila shoved the artifact into Mia's hands, urging her to board the shuttle. "Go!" she shouted. "I'll hold them off." Jonah hesitated, but nodded. "We're not leaving without you." "Go!" Lila repeated, her voice sharp. There was no time for arguments. She watched as the shuttle doors closed, locking in her crew. As the ship began to rise, she turned to face the advancing Zorath soldiers. But just as they were about to close in, a series of explosions rang out across the facility, massive tremors that rocked the very foundation of the building. Lila's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected the planet itself to fight back, but there was no denying it now. The artifact's power was beginning to react to their presence, triggering something they couldn't control. The Zorath soldiers faltered, their eyes wide in confusion and fear. Lila took the chance and ran for her life, not looking back as she sprinted toward the shuttle, her heart hammering in her chest. The last thing she saw before the shuttle doors slammed shut was the Zorath Elder, standing amidst the chaos. His eyes locked on her with a silent promise. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure: the galaxy would never be the same again. As the shuttle soared into the sky, leaving the planet behind, Lila couldn't help but wonder, had they truly escaped? Or had they just set in motion something far more dangerous than anyone could comprehend? The pressure drop had only just begun.